The clock on my nightstand read 2:47 a.m. when I heard Sloane's Mercedes purr into our driveway. Funny thing about insomnia, it makes you notice details you'd rather ignore. Like how my wife of 8 years had been coming home later and later from her client dinners at the PR firm where she worked. I'm Nick Callahan, construction supervisor, coffee enthusiast, and apparently the kind of husband who lies awake wondering why his own bed feels like a hotel room. Not exactly the life I'd planned when I married the ambitious blonde who used to laugh at my jokes and steal fries from my plate. The front door opened with the careful precision of someone trying not to wake a sleeping spouse. Too bad for Sloane. This spouse had been staring at the ceiling for 3 hours, listening to rain tap against our bedroom window like an impatient debt collector. "Nick, you awake?" Her voice carried that artificial sweetness she used with difficult clients. "Now I am." I sat up, switched on the lamp. The light caught her off guard. She actually flinched. "How was dinner with the Morrison account?" Sloane dropped her gym bag by the dresser, avoiding eye contact. "Long, boring. You know how these corporate types are." She headed for the bathroom, but not before I caught sight of something that made my stomach drop. A hickey. Right there on her neck, barely concealed by foundation that didn't quite match her skin tone. "Must have been some dinner," I said. She paused at the bathroom door. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just making conversation with my wife." The bathroom door closed, with more force than necessary. I heard the shower start, and I knew she'd be in there for 20 minutes, scrubbing away evidence of whatever or whoever had kept her out until almost 3 in the morning. I'd been a construction supervisor for 12 years. You learn to spot problems before they become disasters. Cracks in foundations, structural weaknesses, things that look solid on the surface but are rotting underneath. My marriage, it seemed, had developed some serious structural issues. The next morning, I was loading the washing machine when I found them. Men's boxer shorts, banana yellow with a designer label I didn't recognize. Size 32 waist. I wore 36, and these definitely weren't mine. "Well," I said to our tabby cat, Winston, who was watching me with typical feline judgment, "at least someone's getting some action around here." Winston meowed, which I chose to interpret as solidarity. I held up the boxers, examining them like evidence at a crime scene. Expensive. The kind of underwear worn by guys who drove BMWs and used words like synergy in casual conversation. The kind of guys my wife met at her fancy corporate events. The kind of guys who weren't construction workers with calloused hands and work boots. Sloane appeared in the kitchen, already dressed in her power suit, hair perfectly styled despite last night's marathon shower. "Morning, honey. Running late for a breakfast meeting. With Morrison Industries? Different client. New account." She grabbed her travel mug, kissed my cheek with the mechanical affection of a greeting card. "Don't wait up tonight. Another late one." After she left, I sat at our kitchen table with my coffee, staring at those yellow boxers. 12 years in construction had taught me another valuable lesson. When you find one problem, there are usually more hiding just out of sight. I'd helped Sloane set up her phone to back up to my laptop years ago, back when she actually trusted me with her technology. Funny how people forget about these little digital breadcrumbs they leave behind. It took me exactly 47 minutes to find what I was looking for. Text messages. Hundreds of them. Between Sloane and someone named Derek, between Sloane and her friends Nina and Lila, between all of them, in a group chat they'd cleverly named Girls' Night. The messages weren't just about an affair. They were about me. "Nick's so clueless," Sloane had written to Derek. "He actually believed the Morrison dinner story. Sometimes I think he's too stupid to breathe." Derek's response, "Good thing. Makes this easier. How much longer until you can get the house and the divorce?" Nina had chimed in, "Girl, you're playing this perfectly. String him along until you get what you need, then dump the loser." I scrolled through months of messages, detailed descriptions of their hotel encounters, mocking commentary about my work clothes, my friends, my pathetic attempts at romance, plans for how Sloane would maximize her divorce settlement while painting me as an inattentive husband. The cherry on top was a photo Sloane had sent to the group chat, me asleep on the couch after a 16-hour workday, mouth open, wearing my oldest t-shirt. The caption read, "This is what I'm stuck with while Derek's in Cabo. End me now." I closed the laptop and finished my coffee. Outside, it was starting to rain again. Time to do what I did best, assess the damage and figure out how to fix it. The rusty anchor wasn't much to look at. a dive bar on the wrong side of downtown, where construction workers, mechanics, and other blue-collar folks went to drink beer and complain about their lives. The kind of place Sloan wouldn't be caught dead in, which made it perfect for my purposes. Gus Martinez had been tending bar there for 15 years. He was also the closest thing our city had to an information broker. Gus knew everyone's business, remembered every conversation, and had the rare gift of making people want to tell him their secrets. "Nick Callahan," Gus said as I settled onto my usual stool. "You look like someone pissed in your cornflakes." "Something like that." I ordered a beer. "You hear anything interesting lately?" Gus had the weathered face of a man who'd seen it all and found most of it disappointing. "Depends what you're fishing for. My wife's been working late a lot, PR business, you know how it is." "Uh-huh." Gus wiped down a glass with practiced efficiency. "That wife of yours, she's still driving that silver Mercedes?" "Yeah, why?" "Funny thing. My cousin Rico works valet at the Hyatt downtown. Says he's been parking that same Mercedes every Tuesday and Thursday night for the past 3 months. Always leaves around midnight." The Hyatt, I knew it well, had done renovation work on their conference rooms 2 years ago. Expensive place. The kind where corporate types took clients to impress them, or where cheating spouses took their lovers for privacy. Rico mentioned who she was meeting? Gus shrugged. Tall guy, dark hair, drives a black BMW, always tips big and acts like he owns the place. Sound familiar? It didn't, but I had a feeling it would soon. I finished my beer and left Gus a generous tip. "Thanks for the conversation." "Anytime, Nick, and hey," he leaned across the bar, "whatever's going on, be smart about it. Guys like us, we don't get second chances when we screw up." Back home, I did some detective work. Derek's last name turned out to be Vaughn, and he wasn't hard to find. Real estate developer, owned a company called Vaughn Properties, drove a black BMW 7 Series with vanity plates that read Close R1. His company website featured professional photos of Derek in expensive suits, shaking hands with city officials and posing at groundbreaking ceremonies. He was handsome in that generic way that women's magazines probably called distinguished. The kind of guy who used hair product and had opinions about wine. The kind of guy who was everything I wasn't. I spent the next week watching, learning, gathering information. Derek lived in a penthouse downtown, worked out at the same gym as Sloan, and had lunch every Friday at a trendy bistro where the sandwiches cost more than I made in an hour. Most importantly, he had no idea I existed. That was about to change. I waited in the Hyatt parking garage on a Thursday night sitting in my pickup truck with the engine off. At 11:43 p.m., Derek's BMW pulled into a spot near the elevator. He got out, straightened his tie, and headed inside with the confident stride of a man who thought he owned the world. 20 minutes later, I made my move. I didn't key his car or slash his tires. Too obvious, too criminal. Instead, I opened my truck's door just as Derek was backing out of his parking spot. The heavy steel door connected with his BMW's rear panel with a satisfying crunch. "Oh no," I called out, jumping from my truck. "I'm so sorry, man. Didn't see you backing up." Derek got out to inspect the damage, a decent-sized dent in his pristine paint job. He was taller than me, probably thought that mattered. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered, running his fingers over the dent. "This is a $70,000 car. Look, I feel terrible about this." I pulled out a business card and a pen. "Let me give you my insurance information." I wrote on the back of the card, "Karma's a witch, isn't it? Nick Callahan." Derek pocketed the card without reading it, too focused on his damaged paint job to pay attention. "I'll have my guy call your insurance company. This better be covered." "Oh, it'll be covered," I said, one way or another. The next morning, I was having coffee when my phone rang, unknown number. "Is this Nick Callahan?" The voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "Speaking. This is Derek Vaughn. You left me your card last night after you damaged my car. Right, in the parking garage. How's that dent looking in daylight? What the heck is wrong with you?" Derek's voice rose. "What kind of sick game are you playing?" "No game, Derek. Just a husband who knows what his wife does on Thursday nights." Silence. Then, "I don't know what you're talking about." "Room 418, the Hyatt. My wife Sloan, your BMW, and those yellow boxer shorts you left in my laundry." I kept my voice calm, conversational. "Ring any bells?" More silence. "Stay away from my wife," Derek finally said. "Funny thing about that," I replied. "She's still my wife. You're the one who should be staying away." I hung up and went back to my coffee. Round one to the construction worker. My foreman, Marty Kowalski, had worked construction for 25 years and had opinions about everything. We were reviewing blueprints for a new office complex when I told him about my situation. "So let me get this straight," Marty said, adjusting his hard hat. "Your wife's cheating with some rich boy, they're planning to screw you in the divorce, and you want to fight back?" "Something like that." "Good," Marty grinned. "About time you grew a backbone. What do you need?" That afternoon, Marty and I followed Derek to his usual Friday lunch spot. We sat at the bar, ordered sandwiches that cost more than our usual diner meals, and watched Derek schmooze with potential clients. "Guy's a real piece of work," Marty observed. "Look at him. Probably hasn't done an honest day's work in his life." Derek was holding court at a corner table, gesturing expansively, while his lunch companions hung on every word. He wore a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and his laugh had the practiced quality of someone who'd learned to charm people for a living. "Think he knows we're here?" I asked. "Nah, guys like that don't notice the help." As if on cue, Derek's gaze swept across the restaurant and landed on me. His expression shifted from confusion to recognition to something approaching panic. I raised my beer bottle in a mock toast. Derek excused himself from his table and walked over to us. "What are you doing here?" "Having lunch," I said. "Great sandwiches. You recommend the place to Sloan, too? You need to stop this. Whatever you think you know—" "I know she's meeting you at the Hyatt twice a week," I interrupted. "I know you're planning to help her maximize her divorce settlement. I know you think I'm too stupid to figure it out." Derek glanced around nervously. "Keep your voice down." "Why? Embarrassed?" I stood up, matching his height. "Funny how that works. You weren't embarrassed when you were screwing my wife." "Nick." Marty's voice carried a warning tone. I sat back down. "Relax, Derek. I'm not going to cause a scene. That's not my style." "Then what do you want?" "I want you to understand something." I leaned forward. "I built things for a living. I also know how to tear them down, carefully, piece by piece, until there's nothing left but rubble." Derek's face had gone pale. "Are you threatening me? Just having a conversation?" I finished my beer. "Enjoy your lunch." As we left, Marty chuckled. "Think you got your point across? We'll see." That evening, Sloan came home earlier than usual, around 9 o'clock. She seemed agitated, kept checking her phone. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine, just work stress. Anything I can help with?" She looked at me like I'd offered to perform brain surgery. "What could you possibly help with?" "I don't know. Sometimes it helps to talk things through with someone who cares about you." For a moment, something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or regret. Then her phone buzzed with a text message, and the moment passed. "I'm going to bed," she said. "Don't wait up." After she went upstairs, I checked the phone backup on my laptop. New messages from Derek, increasingly frantic. "Your husband confronted me at lunch. This is getting out of hand." Sloan's reply, "Don't panic. Nick's all bark, no bite. He won't do anything." Derek, "Are you sure? Guy seemed pretty angry." Sloan, "Trust me, I've been married to him for 8 years. He's too much of a coward to cause real problems." I closed the laptop and smiled. We'd see about that. Mrs. Eldridge lived in the house next to ours and had the supernatural ability to know everything that happened in our neighborhood. She was 73, sharp as a tack, and had been widowed for 10 years. Most people found her nosiness annoying. I found it useful. "Nicholas," she called from her garden as I was leaving for work. "Do you have a minute?" I walked over to her fence. Eldridge was tending her roses with the focused attention of a surgeon. "I hope you don't mind me saying, but you've seemed troubled lately." "Just work stress, Mrs. Eldridge." She gave me a look that suggested she wasn't buying it. "I've lived next to you and Sloan for 3 years. I notice things." "What kind of things?" "The kind of things a concerned neighbor notices." She pruned a dead bloom with surgical precision. "Like how your wife has been having visitors during the day while you're at work." My pulse quickened. "Visitors?" "Different men. Always well-dressed, always driving expensive cars. They never stay long, and they always park around the corner." "How long has this been going on?" "Months. I minded my own business at first, but then I started wondering if you knew." I thanked Mrs. Eldridge and went to work, but I couldn't concentrate. Sloan wasn't just cheating with Derek, she was entertaining multiple men in our house, while I was earning money to pay the mortgage. That evening, I installed a small security camera in our living room. Nothing illegal, it was my house too, and the camera was clearly visible. If Sloan asked, I'd say I was concerned about break-ins. She didn't ask. 3 days later, the camera paid off. I was reviewing the footage when I saw Sloan enter the living room with a man I didn't recognize. Older, silver-haired, wearing a suit that screamed money and power. They didn't waste time on small talk. I fast-forwarded through the footage, feeling sick to my stomach. This wasn't just an affair, it was a pattern. Sloan was systematically betraying our marriage with multiple partners, turning our home into her personal playground. The silver-haired man left after an hour. Sloan straightened the couch cushions, checked her makeup in the hallway mirror, and went back to her normal routine like nothing had happened. That night at dinner, she asked about my day with the same fake interest she'd been showing for months. Fine, I said. Productive. How about you? Do anything interesting? Just worked from home. Caught up on some client reports. Must have been intense work. You look flushed. She touched her cheek self-consciously. It's warm in here. Maybe we should adjust the thermostat. I nodded and continued eating. By the way, I installed a security camera in the living room. Hope you don't mind. Sloane's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. A camera? Why? There have been some break-ins in the neighborhood. Mrs. Eldridge suggested it. Where exactly is this camera? I pointed to the bookshelf where the small device was clearly visible. Right there. Records everything that happens in the main living area. The color drained from Sloane's face. How long has it been there? Few days. Why? Is there a problem? No, no problem. I should have been consulted. It's our house, Sloan. I figured home security was something we both wanted. She excused herself from dinner and spent the next hour in the bathroom. When she came out, her eyes were red and her hands were shaking. Nick, we need to talk. About what? About us, about our marriage. I leaned back in my chair. What about it? I think we need some space. Time to figure things out. You want a separation? Maybe just temporary until we can work through our problems. What problems are those exactly? Sloan struggled to find words. We've grown apart. We want different things. You know this hasn't been working for a while. Actually, I thought things were fine, but then I'm just a construction worker. What do I know? She flinched at my tone. Don't be like that. Like what? Honest? Cruel. I stood up from the table. You want to know what cruel is, Sloan? Cruel is finding another man's underwear in my laundry. Cruel is listening to my wife mock me to her friends. Cruel is turning our home into a hotel for your affairs. Nick, cruel is planning to destroy me in a divorce while pretending everything's fine. Sloane's composure finally cracked. How long have you known? Long enough. What do you want? I looked at my wife, really looked at her. The woman I'd loved, married, built a life with. The woman who'd been systematically betraying me for months while planning my destruction. I want you to understand something, I said. You think I'm stupid. You think I'm weak. You think I'll just roll over and let you and your boyfriends destroy me? That's not... You're wrong. The city's annual Harvest Festival was in full swing when I decided to make my next move. Main Street was packed with families, food vendors, and local businesses showing off their wares. Sloan was there with her friends Nina and Lila, all three dressed like they were attending a fashion show instead of a small-town festival. I'd been watching them for an hour from my position near the beer tent, nursing a cold one and waiting for the right moment. Marty stood beside me, keeping an eye on the crowd. You sure about this? He asked. Absolutely. Nina was Sloan's best friend and biggest enabler, a divorced real estate agent who spent most of her time complaining about men while actively pursuing them. Lila worked at the same PR firm as Sloan and had the personality of a caffeinated cheerleader. Together, they formed the kind of toxic friendship circle that thrived on drama and gossip. They were currently holding court near the craft beer booth, drawing attention from every man within a 50-foot radius. Sloan wore a sundress that probably cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget, and her laugh carried across the crowd with practiced precision. I finished my beer and walked over. Ladies, I said, approaching their little circle, enjoying the festival? Sloan's smile faltered when she saw me. Nick, hi, I didn't expect to see you here. Why not? It's my town, too. Nina stepped closer to Sloan in a show of solidarity. How are you doing, Nick? Sloan mentioned you've been working a lot lately. Yeah, well, someone has to pay the bills. I kept my tone light, conversational. Speaking of work, How's that hotel loyalty program treating you, honey? Sloane's face went pale. What? The Hyatt downtown. I heard they have excellent customer service. Very discreet. Lila looked confused, but Nina caught on quickly. Her eyes narrowed as she realized what I was implying. I think we should go, Nina said, taking Sloane's arm. Why? I asked. We're just having a conversation. About my wife's work habits, her dedication to client service, her willingness to go above and beyond. Stop it, Sloane whispered. Stop what? I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Not every wife would be so accommodating to her clients' needs. A small crowd was starting to gather, drawn by the tension in our voices. I recognized several faces, neighbors, acquaintances, people who knew both Sloane and me. You're embarrassing yourself, Lila said. Am I? I thought I was just talking about my marriage, about trust, about commitment. I looked directly at Sloane, about the things that matter when you promise to love, honor, and cherish someone. Sloane's composure cracked. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I understand that you've been meeting Derek Vaughn at the Hyatt twice a week for 3 months. I understand that you've been bringing other men to our house while I'm at work. I understand that you and your friends have been planning my destruction while pretending to care about me. The crowd was growing larger. People were pulling out phones, recording the drama unfolding in front of them. Nina stepped forward, trying to take control. Nick, you're clearly upset. Maybe I should what? Shut up? Go away? Pretend I don't know what's been happening? You're making a scene, Lila hissed. Good, it's about time. Sloane tried to walk away, but I followed. Where are you going, honey? Back to the hotel? Or maybe to Derek's penthouse? I hear he has a great view of the city. Please stop, Sloane said, tears starting to form in her eyes. Why? You didn't stop when you were destroying our marriage? You didn't stop when you were mocking me to your friends? You didn't stop when you were planning to take everything I've worked for? The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. I could see phones recording, social media posts being crafted in real time. By tomorrow, everyone in town would know what Sloane Callahan had been doing behind her husband's back. I want a divorce, Sloane said suddenly. I know you do. I've read your text messages, remember? You and Derek have it all planned out. Fine, then we're done. We've been done for months, Sloane. I just didn't know it. She turned and pushed through the crowd, Nina and Lila trailing behind her. I watched them go, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and exhaustion. Marty appeared at my side. Well, that was something. Yeah, something. You okay? I looked around at the dispersing crowd, at the phones still recording, at the faces of people who would be talking about this moment for weeks to come. Actually, yeah, I think I am. The fallout from the festival confrontation was swift and brutal. By Monday morning, videos of our public argument were circulating on social media with hashtags like #cheatingwife and public shaming. Sloane's carefully constructed public image was crumbling in real time. I was reviewing construction schedules when my phone rang. Derek Vaughn's number. You son of a witch, he said without preamble. Do you have any idea what you've done? Enlighten me. That little stunt at the festival has gone viral. My business partners are asking questions. My ex-wife is threatening to use this in our custody battle. Sounds like a personal problem. This affects Sloane too. Her career, her reputation. Should have thought about that before you started screwing another man's wife. We need to meet. Work this out like adults. I considered the offer. Fine, tonight, 9 o'clock. The construction site on Maple Street. You know where it is? You're developing the property next door. Why there? Privacy. Unless you'd prefer another public venue? Derek agreed and hung up. I spent the rest of the day preparing for our conversation. The Maple Street site was a half-finished office building, all concrete and steel beams reaching toward the sky like skeletal fingers. I arrived early and waited in the shadows, watching Derek's BMW pull up exactly at 9 o'clock. He got out wearing jeans and a polo shirt, his version of dressing down for a clandestine meeting. Even in casual clothes, he looked like he'd stepped out of a catalog. Nick, he called into the darkness. Over here. I stepped into the light cast by a street lamp. Thanks for coming. Derek approached cautiously. Look, I know you're angry. Angry doesn't begin to cover it. But destroying Sloane's reputation won't fix your marriage, I laughed. Fix my marriage? Derek, my marriage ended the first time you took my wife to that hotel room. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? You were going to steal my wife, help her take half my assets, and I was supposed to be grateful? Derek had the decency to look ashamed. Sloan said you two were having problems, that the marriage was already over. And you believed her? I wanted to believe her. We stood there in the shadows of the unfinished building, two men whose lives had become entangled in the worst possible way. What do you want from me? Derek asked. I want you to understand what you've cost me. 8 years of marriage, trust, the future I thought I was building. You never meant to get caught. Derek's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. Sloan wants to know if we're meeting. Tell her we're having a very productive conversation. What's that supposed to mean? I pulled out my own phone and showed him the screen. It means I've been recording this entire conversation. Amazing what smartphones can do these days. Derek's eyes widened. You can't. Can't what? Record a conversation I'm participating in? Actually, I can. It's perfectly legal. What do you want? I want you to stay away from my wife. I want you to stop interfering in my marriage. And I want you to understand that if you don't, I'll make sure everyone in this city knows exactly what kind of man you are. Derek's composure finally cracked. You think you can threaten me? You think some blue-collar nobody can intimidate Derek Vaughn? I think Derek Vaughn is about to learn that blue-collar nobodies built this city, and we know how to tear things down. I walked toward him, and Derek instinctively stepped back. Stay away from Sloan, I said again. Or what? I smiled. Or you'll find out what happens when you underestimate a construction worker. 2 weeks later, Sloan moved out of our house and into a downtown apartment. She took her clothes, her car, and her attitude, leaving behind 8 years of shared memories and a forwarding address I didn't bother to write down. The divorce papers arrived on a Thursday, delivered by a courier who looked embarrassed to be involved in the transaction. Sloan was asking for half of everything, the house, my retirement savings, even half the value of my construction business. I called my lawyer, Jim Patterson, a guy I'd known since high school who specialized in divorce cases. She's asking for a lot, Jim said after reviewing the papers. But in a no-fault state like ours, she might get it. Even though she was cheating, adultery doesn't carry the weight it used to. Unless you can prove she was hiding assets or planning to defraud you. Actually, I might be able to prove exactly that. I spent the weekend organizing evidence. Text messages, photos, recorded conversations, financial records showing Sloan's increased spending during her affair. By Monday morning, I had enough documentation to fill a briefcase. Jim whistled when he saw it all. Where did you get this? I'm a thorough guy. This changes everything. If we can show she was planning to defraud you, we can probably protect most of your assets. What about Derek? What about him? Can we go after him for alienation of affection? Jim shook his head. This isn't the 1950s, Nick. You can't sue someone for stealing your wife. Too bad, but I had other plans for Derek Vaughn. That evening I was having dinner at the Rusty Anchor when Derek walked in. He looked around the bar like he'd entered a foreign country, clearly uncomfortable in the blue-collar environment. He spotted me and walked over. We need to talk. Then talk. Derek glanced around nervously. Privately. This is as private as it gets. Nobody here cares about your problems. He sat down across from me. Sloan's falling apart, the divorce, the publicity, her job, and it's all too much. Sounds rough. She's talking about leaving town, starting over somewhere else. Good idea. Derek leaned forward. Look, I know you hate me. I know I screwed up. But Sloan doesn't deserve this. Doesn't deserve what? The consequences of her actions? She made a mistake. She made dozens of mistakes. For months. With multiple men. In our house. Derek's face flushed. You don't understand. She was unhappy. Your marriage was already broken. According to who? You? According to her. I finished my beer and stood up. Derek, let me explain something to you. I spent 8 years building a life with Sloan. I worked 60-hour weeks to pay for that house, those cars, that lifestyle she loves so much. I trusted her completely, supported her career, and never once questioned her commitment to our marriage. But I'm not finished. My voice carried enough authority to make Derek shut up. She repaid that trust by turning our marriage into a joke, our home into her personal brothel, and our future into her retirement plan. So no, I don't think she deserves my sympathy. What do you want from us? I want you both to disappear. Leave town, start over somewhere else, and never contact me again. Derek nodded eagerly. We can do that. Sloan's already talking about moving to California. Good. Make sure it happens. And in return, I won't send copies of all your text messages to your business partners, your ex-wife's lawyer, and the local newspaper. Derek's face went white. You wouldn't. Try me. He left the bar without another word. I ordered another beer and considered my options. 3 days later, Sloan called me. Nick, please, we need to talk. About what? About the divorce. About ending this civilly. I thought we were being civil. You're getting a lawyer, I'm getting a lawyer. Very civilized. You know what I mean. The evidence you've gathered, the recordings, the threats. What threats? Derek told me about your conversation at the bar. Did he? What exactly did he tell you? Sloan was quiet for a moment. He said you'd ruin us both if we didn't leave town. That's not what I said. What I said was that actions have consequences. What I said was that people who destroy other people's lives shouldn't be surprised when their own lives get destroyed in return. I never meant to hurt you, but you did hurt me, Sloan, deeply. And now you want me to pretend it never happened? I want us to move on. We are moving on. You're moving to California with Derek, and I'm moving on with my life. What if I don't want to move to California? Then you'll have to live with the consequences of staying here. Sloan hung up without saying goodbye. The final confrontation came 3 weeks later at the most unexpected place, the grocery store. I was picking up supplies for a weekend project when I saw them in the produce section. Sloan and Derek, shopping together like a normal couple, examining avocados with the intense concentration of people trying very hard to appear domestic. They hadn't seen me yet, so I had a moment to observe them. Derek looked tired, older somehow, like the stress of the past month had aged him. Sloan seemed fragile, diminished, a shadow of the confident woman who used to command attention wherever she went. For a brief moment, I felt something that might have been pity. Then I remembered the text messages, the mockery, the systematic destruction of everything I thought was real in my life. I walked over to them. Sloan, Derek. They both froze. Sloan dropped the avocado she'd been holding. Nick, she said. Hello, doing some shopping? Derek stepped protectively closer to Sloan. We're just picking up a few things. For the move to California, they exchanged glances. We've decided to stay, Sloan said quietly. Have you? That's interesting. We have lives here, careers, we can't just run away. I nodded thoughtfully. You know, I've been thinking about that. About running away, about consequences, about what happens when people refuse to face the reality of their situations. Nick, Derek started, I've been thinking about justice too, about fairness, about what people deserve. Sloan's eyes filled with tears. Please don't do this. Do what? Whatever you're planning, whatever revenge you think will make you feel better. Revenge, I laughed. Sloan, I don't need revenge. You've already destroyed yourselves. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and showed them a news article from that morning's paper. Vaughn Properties loses major development contract after client concerns about executive behavior. Derek's face went pale as he read the headline. Turns out, I continued, that Mrs. Henderson, the widow who owns the land Derek wanted to develop, doesn't approve of adultery. She's a very religious woman. When she heard about Derek's affair with a married woman, she decided to take her business elsewhere. How did she... Derek started. Small town, Derek. People talk, especially after public scenes at local festivals. I scrolled to another article. And this one's interesting, too. Local PR firm parts ways with executive following social media controversy. Sloan gasped. They fired me? Apparently, having a cheating scandal go viral isn't good for a company that manages other people's public relations. Derek grabbed my arm. You did this. You destroyed our careers. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back at his face. I didn't do anything except tell the truth. You destroyed your own careers when you decided to destroy my marriage. We can rebuild, Sloan said desperately. Start over. With what money? Derek's company is hemorrhaging clients, and Sloan's unemployed. Good luck rebuilding anything. Derek's grip on my arm tightened. You son of a witch! I'd be careful about making threats in public, Derek. Especially given your recent legal troubles. What legal troubles? I smiled. The ones that start Monday morning when Mrs. Henderson's lawyer files a lawsuit claiming you misrepresented yourself during contract negotiations. Apparently, failing to disclose that you were having an affair with a married woman constitutes fraud under certain circumstances. Derek released my arm and stepped back. You can't prove any of that. I don't have to prove anything. I just have to let the lawyers sort it out. Should take about 2 years and cost you everything you have left. Sloane was crying openly now. Why are you doing this to us? I'm not doing anything to you. I'm simply allowing you to experience the natural consequences of your choices. This isn't justice. This is cruelty. I looked at my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and felt nothing but emptiness where love used to live. You want to know what cruelty is, Sloane? Cruelty is 8 years of loyalty repaid with betrayal. Cruelty is finding out that the person you trusted most in the world has been systematically destroying you while pretending to love you. Cruelty is discovering that your entire marriage was a lie. It wasn't all a lie. Yes, it was. Every day you came home and kissed me after being with another man, that was a lie. Every time you said you loved me while planning my destruction, that was a lie. Every moment of our life together was built on deception. Derek tried to interject. Look, we can work something out. No, we can't. Because you're not the kind of people who work things out. You're the kind of people who take what you want and destroy anyone who gets in your way. I turned to leave, then stopped and looked back at them. By the way, the house is being sold. My lawyer says I can force the sale as part of the divorce proceedings. Should be on the market by next week. Where will I live? Sloane asked. I guess you'll figure it out. You're a smart woman, resourceful. I'm sure you'll land on your feet. I walked away, leaving them standing in the produce section surrounded by the ruins of their carefully constructed fantasy. 6 months later, I was sitting on the deck of my new house, a smaller place on the other side of town, but it was mine, completely and legally mine, when Marty stopped by with a 6-pack of beer. Heard some interesting news today, he said, settling into the chair beside me. Yeah? Derek Vaughn filed for bankruptcy. Lost everything in that lawsuit. Word is, he's working at a car dealership now. And Sloane? Moved back in with her parents, still looking for work, but apparently nobody wants to hire someone who became famous for cheating on her husband. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the city where I'd been born, raised, and betrayed. You ever regret it? Marty asked. How it all went down? I thought about the question. Did I regret destroying 2 people's lives? Did I regret using their own tools against them? Did I regret choosing justice over mercy? I said finally. I don't regret it at all. Why not? Because they made their choices and I made mine. They chose to destroy everything I cared about. I chose to make sure they faced the consequences. And now I'm free. Free from lies, free from betrayal, free from people who thought I was too stupid to fight back. Marty raised his beer bottle. To freedom! To freedom! We drank and watched the last light fade from the sky. Somewhere in the city, Sloane was probably crying herself to sleep in her childhood bedroom. Somewhere else, Derek was probably staring at the ceiling of whatever cheap apartment he could afford, wondering how his perfect life had fallen apart so completely. I didn't feel sorry for either of them. I felt nothing at all. And for the first time in months, that felt exactly right. Sometimes the underdog doesn't just get even. Sometimes the underdog gets everything.